Sometimes what looks like an accident is actually a well-planned murder hiding behind the mask of love. It was the night of July 3rd, 2017, when a quiet home in Kashipur, Uttarakhand received a call that shattered their world forever. Afzal and his family had just finished dinner. The night was calm, the air heavy with the usual peace of a small town, until Afzal's wife Nouri picked up her phone. Her brother Hashim was calling, and his voice on the other side trembled with fear. Nouri, मेरी कार का एक्सीडेंट हो गया है. Your sister-in-law is badly injured. Please come fast. Panic spread through the house. Nobody could have guessed that behind that trembling voice hid a secret darker than the night itself. Without wasting a second, Nouri and Afzal rushed out, calling relatives along the way. The road to the supposed crash site was lonely, and the silence outside matched the storm brewing inside their hearts. Before they could even reach there, news came that Hashim had already driven to a private hospital with his wife Shaheen. But by the time they arrived, the doctor's words froze everyone in place. Shaheen is no more. Shock turned to disbelief. Hashim had only a minor injury on his forehead, but his wife was gone forever. According to him, the car had collided violently with something unknown, shattering the windshield and killing Shaheen instantly. The family accepted it as a tragic accident. After all, who would ever suspect a man mourning beside his dead wife? Shaheen's family was heartbroken. She was the only sister among 3 brothers. Their pride, their joy, the girl they had raised after losing their mother when she was only 3 months old. Her father, Nasim Ahmad, had struggled all his life to raise his children alone. He never remarried. He gave them everything he could. And now his daughter was gone just like that. The grief was unbearable. Amid tears and silence, the family buried Shaheen the next day in Karbala graveyard. Ali Khan, Kashipur, without a post-mortem. Even in their pain, they trusted Hashim's story. It seemed cruel to doubt a man who had just lost his wife. But sometimes grief whispers questions that logic cannot silence. That night, when everyone returned home from the burial, something began to bother them all. Why had Shaheen's body turned blue? If it was a road accident, why weren't there more visible injuries? Why did her husband insist on not calling the police? And why was he in such a hurry to bury her without a post-mortem? Nasim tried to push away those thoughts, but his father's instinct screamed. Something was not right. For hours, the family sat in silence, their hearts heavy and minds restless. Finally, Afzal broke the silence. Abba, what if this wasn't an accident? Everyone froze. It was a thought they were too scared to think aloud, but one they all secretly shared. Nasim took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow morning, we're going to the police. The next day, Afzal walked into Kashipur police station with his father and brothers. His voice shook as he spoke to the officer in charge, Inspector Chanchal Sharma. He explained everything, the suspicious blue marks, the rushed burial, and his growing doubt that Shaheen's death was not what it seemed. The inspector listened carefully and immediately contacted the local SDM, Vineet Tamar, for permission to exhume the body for post-mortem. It wasn't easy. Digging up a grave means reopening wounds that haven't even begun to heal. But for the family, the truth mattered more than pain. By afternoon, under the scorching sun and the silent gaze of police and family, Shaheen's grave was opened. Everyone prayed that they were wrong, that it was just a tragic accident. But as soon as the body surfaced, the police noticed something chilling. There were no external injuries, no cuts, no bruises, no broken bones. The shattered windshield story made no sense. Something inside the police station and within Shaheen's family shifted that moment. It wasn't an accident. It was something far more sinister. The police sent the body for post-mortem while Hashim was quietly taken into custody for questioning. Meanwhile, officers inspected the crash site. To their shock, there were no tire marks, no tree branches broken, and no sign of collision. The front of the car was perfectly fine. Only the windshield was broken, as if someone had smashed it deliberately. Hashim's story was falling apart piece by piece. And when the post-mortem report came back, the truth was even darker than anyone imagined. Shaheen had been poisoned. The police now knew they were dealing with murder, not an accident. The same man who had cried over his wife's body was the one who had ended her life. But what could drive a man to kill his loving wife? As the interrogation began, Hashim's mask started to crumble, and behind it hid years of greed, infidelity, and an obsession that would soon unfold into one of the most horrifying domestic crimes in Kashipur's history. The next morning, the peaceful town of Etawah was buzzing with whispers. News of the woman's body found near the Yamuna bridge had spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered near the police station trying to make sense of what had happened. Some said it was a robbery gone wrong. Others murmured it was an honor killing. But to show Diwakar Saroj, something about the scene still felt wrong. The way the body was placed, the missing mobile phone, the torn dupatta, it all felt too deliberate, almost as if someone wanted the police to see exactly what they were supposed to see. Diwakar decided to start from scratch. He called his team and sent constables to nearby villages asking if anyone was missing a woman. Hours later, a breakthrough came from a villager in Madhya. A man named Dhirendra had reported that his sister Sunita hadn't returned home since last night. When Diwakar heard the name, his instincts sharpened. He immediately called Dhirendra to the station. As soon as the man walked in and saw the photograph of the woman, his knees buckled. "Yes, sir. She's my sister," he whispered, his voice trembling. "She went out last night, but she never came back." Dhirendra's statement opened a new chapter in the investigation. Sunita was a 32-year-old woman, married to a man named Ramesh, who worked as a driver in Etawah. The couple had been living separately for a few months after constant fights. She wasn't happy with her marriage, Dhirendra admitted quietly. She often stayed with me and my wife. Last night she said she was going to meet someone, but she didn't tell me who. The word someone lingered in the air like a ghost. Diwakar noted every word carefully. Whoever Sunita went to meet was most likely the person responsible for her death. The next step was tracing her phone records. The forensic team retrieved her call data, and within hours one number appeared again and again, registered under a man named Rohit Chauhan. When the police checked his details, they discovered he lived in a nearby town and was a teacher by profession. Diwakar felt a chill run down his spine. A teacher, an educated man secretly in touch with a married woman who ended up dead. It didn't look good. Without wasting time, the police headed to Rohit's house. But when they reached there, the door was locked from the outside, and neighbors said they hadn't seen him since yesterday evening. The missing man's disappearance deepened the mystery. Diwakar ordered a search operation in and around the town. Meanwhile, forensic reports arrived confirming that Sunita had been strangled to death before being dumped near the bridge. There were no signs of sexual assault, but traces of perfume and cigarette smoke were found on her clothes. It suggested that she had met someone she trusted, someone who didn't need to use force to get close to her. The realization was haunting. This wasn't a random killing. It was personal. By evening, the police received another piece of the puzzle. Rohit's motorcycle had been found abandoned near a sugarcane field, barely a few kilometers from the crime scene. His mobile phone was switched off, but CCTV footage from a nearby petrol pump captured him riding the same motorcycle with a woman wearing a red dupatta, Sunita, on the evening of her murder. The timestamp showed 8:42 p.m. That was barely an hour before her body was discovered. The evidence was undeniable now. Rohit was the last person seen with her. Back at the police station, Dhirendra broke down in tears. "Sir, I warned her," he sobbed. "I told her to stay away from him." Rohit wasn't a good man. He promised her a new life, but all he brought was destruction. When asked what he meant, Dhirendra explained that Sunita had been having an affair with Rohit for almost a year. She believed he would leave his wife and marry her, but that never happened. Recently, she had started pressuring him, threatening to tell everyone about their relationship. Diwakar finally began to see the whole picture. This was no ordinary crime. It was a web of love, betrayal, and fear. The police intensified their search, setting up checkpoints across nearby districts. Then 2 days later, they caught a break. A man matching Rohit's description was seen boarding a bus to Kanpur. The police team rushed to the terminal and arrested him from a roadside tea stall. When they brought him back to the station, his calmness was unsettling. Sitting in the interrogation room, Rohit looked more like a teacher than a killer. His eyes were blank, his hands steady. When Diwakar confronted him with the evidence, the CCTV footage, the phone calls, the witness statements, he simply looked down and said, "She wouldn't stop calling me." At first, Rohit denied everything. He claimed they had met to talk things out, and when he dropped her off, she was alive. But the evidence didn't lie. His fingerprints matched those found on her scarf, the same scarf used to strangle her. As the pressure mounted, his composure cracked. "She was ruining my life," he shouted. "She kept threatening to come to my house, to tell my wife everything. I begged her to stop. That night she said she'd destroy me, and I just lost control." His confession was chilling. Not just because of what he said, but how he said it. No remorse, no guilt. Just cold justification. The officers listened in silence as Rohit described that fateful night. They had met near the bridge. Sunita begged him to leave his wife, but when he refused, she threatened to expose him. The argument turned violent. In a moment of rage, he wrapped her dupatta around her neck and pulled. She struggled, clawed at his arms, but he didn't stop until she went limp. Realizing what he'd done, he panicked, dragged her body to the roadside and fled on his motorcycle. He thought the river would wash away his sins, but instead, it exposed them for the world to see. As Diwakar finished writing the final notes of the confession, he looked at Rohit and asked softly, "Did you love her?" For a brief second, Rohit's eyes glistened. "Maybe I did," he said, "but sometimes love becomes a burden." His words echoed in the silent room like a curse. Later, as the team led him away, Diwakar stood at the window watching the evening sky fade into darkness. The case was almost over, yet something about it still didn't sit right with him. Why had Sunita trusted him so much despite knowing the danger? What had made her go to that bridge knowing she might never return? The answers lay somewhere between love and fear, between truth and deception. And as the town of Etawah settled into another night, whispers of the case still floated through the air. People spoke of forbidden love, of broken promises, of how a simple desire for affection could turn deadly. But Diwakar knew the story wasn't entirely finished. There were still loose ends, still truths buried beneath half-told lies. And as he prepared his final report, a new thought crept into his mind, one that would change everything once again. What if Rohit wasn't the only one hiding something? The night after Rohit's confession, S.H.O. Diwakar Saroj sat alone in his office, reading through the entire case file. Every line felt complete, yet his instincts whispered otherwise. Something didn't add up. Rohit's version of events made sense, but not completely. The way the body was left, the perfume traces, the missing mobile phone, it all hinted at a second presence. If Rohit had acted in panic, why had he taken time to wipe certain fingerprints? Why were Sunita's earrings missing when every other ornament was still there? These details gnawed at his mind like unsolved riddles. At dawn, Diwakar called his team back to the station. "We're missing something," he said firmly. "This case isn't over." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had already arrested the killer, taken the confession, and the media had started celebrating the police's quick action. But Diwakar wasn't a man who stopped at half-truths. He sent forensic experts back to the crime scene with one clear instruction: search everything. Every blade of grass, every footprint, every trace near that bridge. Hours passed. Then just before noon, a constable came running, holding a small object wrapped in cloth. It was a gold earring half buried in the mud, the same design that Sunita's brother had described. Diwakar examined it carefully. "This was torn during a struggle," he murmured. But there was something more. When the forensic team dusted it for prints, a partial fingerprint appeared, not belonging to Rohit or Sunita. It was someone else's. The revelation changed everything. If a third person had been there that night, then Rohit's confession was only part of the truth. The question was, who was that third person? Diwakar reopened the phone records, tracing calls made to Sunita's number that day. That's when he found something that froze his blood. Just 2 hours before she met Rohit, Sunita had received a call from Ramesh, her estranged husband. When Diwakar summoned Ramesh for questioning, the man appeared calm, too calm. He sat across from the officer, his eyes blank, his tone steady. "Yes, I called her," he admitted. "She was my wife. I wanted to talk, but when Diwakar asked where he was at 10 p.m. that night, Ramesh hesitated. I was at home," he stammered. "Alone." That single word, alone, was his mistake. The officer's instincts flared again. No witnesses, no alibi, and a mysterious fingerprint at the scene. It was enough to reopen the wound. This wasn't just about jealousy. It was a triangle of obsession, betrayal, and revenge. To verify his doubts, Diwakar quietly sent officers to check Ramesh's home. What they found in his backyard was shocking. A scarf matching the fabric of Sunita's dupatta with traces of soil and blood. Forensics confirmed it belonged to Sunita. It meant Ramesh had been there, possibly after the murder or maybe even before it. When confronted, his composure finally broke. Tears filled his eyes as he whispered, "I didn't kill her, sir. I just wanted to see her one last time." His words sparked confusion. "You were there?" Diwakar asked. Ramesh nodded slowly. "I followed her that night. I saw her meeting Rohit near the bridge. I heard them arguing. I wanted to stop her, but before I could, he killed her. I ran. I was scared." The confession was half truth, half desperation. Diwakar pressed further. "Why didn't you come forward?" Ramesh looked down, his voice trembling. "Because everyone would think I did it. I lost her long before that night, sir. She stopped being mine the day she fell for him." His voice cracked, echoing through the silent room. The realization was painful but real. Ramesh had indeed been there, hidden in the shadows, watching the woman he loved take her last breath. But his guilt wasn't of murder. It was of cowardice. He could have saved her, but he didn't. The police verified every detail. CCTV footage later confirmed Ramesh's presence near the bridge, standing by the trees as Rohit's motorcycle passed. His fear had turned him into a ghost witness of his own tragedy. With that revelation, the case finally began to close. Rohit was charged with murder, Ramesh for withholding evidence. Dhirendra, Sunita's brother, broke down as justice finally approached. But even justice felt incomplete. It couldn't bring her back nor erase the pain that lingered in every life she touched. When the trial began, Rohit remained expressionless. His defense claimed it was a crime of passion, a momentary lapse of reason. The courtroom fell silent as Diwakar read the details of the murder. Every word echoed with tragedy, love that turned to fear, dreams that turned to ashes. The judge listened quietly before declaring a life sentence. As Rohit was led away, he turned once, his eyes cold yet distant. "She promised she'd never leave me," he whispered. "But she did." His words sent a shiver through everyone in the room. Weeks later, when the case file was finally closed, Diwakar visited the Yamuna bridge one last time. The river flowed silently beneath him, carrying memories that would never fade. The air was still heavy, as if it remembered that night, the argument, the struggle, the silence that followed. He placed a small flower near the spot where Sunita had taken her last breath. "You just wanted to be loved," he murmured. "But love shouldn't have cost you your life." For a long time he stood there, staring at the horizon, lost in thought. The story of Sunita, Rohit, and Ramesh became a haunting reminder for the town, of how love can blind and how silence can kill. People whispered her name for months, spinning rumors and half-truths, never knowing the full pain behind it. Some said she was a sinner, others said she was a victim. But only Diwakar knew the truth, that she was just human, caught in the storm of her own heart. As he drove away that evening, one last question lingered in his mind. A question that even justice couldn't answer. If love can drive a man to kill, can it also make another too afraid to save?